Welcome to Fold Cards. Today we are going to work with distress oxides and a smooshing technique and stamp with our Lavinia stamps to finish off our cards. So we're going to make a simple Z fold hidden card, which is nice and easy to create, and then we will have our distress oxide and Lavinia stamp panel on top. So to get started, we will do our panels with the smooshing technique to get that background ready so it's nice and dry. So you'll need distress oxide, a spray bottle with some water, and some good quality cardstock. Now this is the cardstock, the smooth white from House of Paper that we have in store. If you don't have this one or a good heavyweight white cardstock, I recommend using a watercolor paper for this technique, something that's going to take the amount of water that we're going to be using. So we're going to cut these down to create our front panels. So we'll cut them down to, let's do 4 inches. We'll do 4 inches. So we're going to make 3 cards today, so we'll do 3 panels and then by 5 3/4. So it's 4 inches by 5 3/4. 2 panels, and we'll do one more. Okay, so keep that aside and we might use that in our card a little later on. Alright, so this smooshing technique to create our background, this also enables us to build up layers of colour to create a really mystical background. But before we move on to the next colour, we need to make sure that it is dry, so have your heat tool handy. Okay, so the first thing to do, just grab a few colours. I've chosen to use the brand new colour that's just been released, Salvage Patina, add a bit of Wild Honey, Faded Jeans and Ward Lipstick. See how we go. If we don't like it, we might choose some different colours. Alright, so just adding some colour to your craft mat, not too much. Spritz with water, and then you're going to smoosh the card into it. Just getting sections of your card. You don't need to have it full. There we go. Oh, that's really hard to see with that bright light because it's quite a light colour when you have the water attached to it. So we've still got some ink left on the board, so we can grab our second panel and we can use all of that up. Just smushing that on till we pick up all of that colour. There we go. So we can add a little bit more on so we can get our third panel going while we've got this colour out. Here we go, just smushing, picking up. We might add some more to that second panel to pick up the rest of it. Alright, as you can see, 3 different looking backgrounds so far just using that smooshing technique. So we're going to build up the colour. If your panels aren't dry yet, grab your heat tool and dry them off before adding the next colour. So we can just keep layering up with the colours to see what we come up with, and then adding more and more colours on top. So you might go with a bit of Wild Honey next, see how that looks. Okay, so when you are spritzing with water, you only want maybe 2, maybe 2.5 sprays. Like, you don't want too much, just enough to get that ink moving. Okay, so we can smush that onto the card. So you don't want to sort of have it full on flat, because you just want to create areas picking up that colour rather than picking up and covering the full amount. So that looks good. We might leave that one there. We'll go to the next panel. A great way of doing multiple cards all at once, and then we're not wasting any of our ink that we have on our mat. But if you still do have some extra and you don't want to add any more to your cards, to your backgrounds that we're creating, maybe have another scrap bit of paper or an art journal page or something like that you can pick up the colour, and then nothing is ever wasted. All right. I like that colour. Wild honey's great. Okay, so we might do worn lipstick next. We'll add that on. Okay, so we might start with the third panel, because that's got the least amount of yellow on it, and we'll just see. So just keep picking that up, smushing that colour on, just seeing what kind of background you end up creating. It's lots and lots of fun, especially when you're creating like these fairy backgrounds with the Lavinia stamps, or if you had the mermaids that they released last year, they would look really pretty if you're using more seaside colours. So you can see that one wasn't quite dry, so some of the colour is mixing in with the pink. So we'll add a little bit more pink on for that last panel. All right, maybe a little bit here. All right, see how you go, work out where you want things to be, and creating lots and lots of colour onto our backgrounds. But they're all very different in how they're looking, which is what we want. So we don't want carbon copies all the time. It's really fun just to see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to dry these off because they are getting a bit wet now, and then we'll move on to the faded jeans and see what we can achieve. Okay, so they're nice and dry now, and you can see that colour changes slightly as it dries. All right, so we'll go with our faded jeans, add that on, see what that does to our backgrounds. Spritz some water, so you can see that the ink is starting to move. That's what you want. You don't want it soaking and stopping. All right, smush that onto our background. Oh, that's looking really good. Very abstract, which is fun. So if you find that there's not quite enough, you can reactivate it and add a little bit more water. It also helps lighten the colour out as well. All right. Quite cool, these colours. All right. Might need a bit more of the faded jeans on this one. So it's always good to work with contrasting colours. Like, you don't want to have everything looking the same, but it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And the fun part of working like this and working with this smooshing technique and creating these backgrounds is that you just never know what you're going to get. Just pick up the last of that colour and see, once you're happy with your backgrounds, you can leave them there. And we are going to dry that off, clean our board, and then we can stamp our little fairy onto our backgrounds. Okay, once your panels are nice and dry, you'll have 3 different unique panels. We can stamp our fairy. I'm going to use a stamp press to make sure we get a good image onto our background. Okay, so we're going to stamp the fairy just slightly up from the bottom, and then we can create, use some blending inks to create something for the fairy to sit on. Okay, so just using a black ink, I've got a StazOn here, but an archival will work just as well. So pressing down all the parts of the fairy to get a good stamped image. Looking good. Might just try and stamp that again. Hopefully it hasn't moved too much. Okay. All right. See if we can get a nice solid stamped image this time. One of the best things about having a stamp press is that you can restamp your images. That's much better. All right, so we can stamp on the other 2 panels as well. Applying nice even pressure to the stamp. Beautiful. And then our last panel. Good. There we go. Okay, so once you have stamped your fairies on each of your panels, you can add some extra finishing touches. So what we might do is create some ground for this one, the beautiful little fairy to sit on. So just grabbing piece of scrap paper and creating just a little piece of ground or mountain to create the shapes that we want. So we can place this one just under the fairy, grab some of our ink. We can use Distress Oxide, or you can use any of your inks that you have available to you. just creating that blend. There we go. Just grounds our fairy. Oh, this might move this one across a little bit. So grounds our fairy and gives her something to sit on. Okay. Alrighty. I'm gonna do this one this way. There we go. That one's quite a bit better. See, we always learn things, we always get better and improve as we go along. It's probably because she's sitting a little bit closer to the bottom compared to this one, and then this one is quite high up. So we'll see how we go. But each time it may look like slightly different, and that's okay. Remember to blend in from the edges so you don't get any of the blending tool marks on your page. Even pressure and just going around in circles against that mask there. There we go. So you might find like being that these two, I love this one, but these two being a little bit higher, they might need sort of a second level and seeing what we can create. So maybe grabbing a darker color, maybe a brown. So we've got walnut stain here. We'll give that a go and see what that looks like. That's much better. So I think even just a second level of that, changing the look of it. Going up a little bit higher. So we can even create just a little bit of a line here. Nice. So just have fun. I'm just having lots of fun right now. Just seeing what comes about and what happens, because you never know what you're going to get as you just keep adapting and changing and trying new things to create your finished piece. Whoops. There we go. I actually really like having that walnut stain at the bottom. We might do a little bit on the bottom of this one too. It's a nice contrast against the blue. Awesome. Okay, so once you have created something for your fairy to sit on, you might like to add some water splotches or some splatters, which we might do next, but we might create a bit of a moon around our little fairy to help her pop out some more. So just using the faded gene, So you'll just need a circle mask. So even just a die cut circle, if you don't have an acetate mask, will work. And then, or just a cut circle from a scrap bit of paper as well. So find what we have. So you can die cut and create the moon around the fairy this way, or use the actual mask to have the moon going around and highlighting the fairy, which I think will look better on this particular design. So we'll cut that out. So you could die cut it, you don't have to fussy cut a circle, it's just quicker for me to fussy cut this circle. But Lavinia stamps have some fantastic acetate, or acetate or plastic, I'm not sure what they've made it out of, but some moons and some mountains and all these great masks that you can use. So we can set our fairy just about there, I think, and we'll see what we can create. Just coming out from the center of your mask and just going around to create that ring around rather than really being super solid. So you can lift that up and see if it's dark enough. You might want to go a little bit darker. So I'm coming from the middle and going out. There we go. So it just helps our fairy really pop. All right, we'll do that on our other two. Awesome. Okay, and our last one. There we go. So you might want to add some stamping in the background, maybe some script stamp, or you might like to leave it as is and then have your sentiment on the bottom there. You might add some splatters. So we'll do some pink, and so the warm lipstick and the wild honey on our board, spritzing, picking it up with a paintbrush and just splattering. All right. Pick up some of the yellow. There we go. So it's hard to see in the screen, those splatters there, but they look really good. Just finishing that off, so we can add our sentiments on, and then we can we'll build our bases of our cards to finish these off and put our panels on the front. Okay, so just cleaning up the board. Nice clean workspace to work with. Popping those aside, we'll pop those aside to dry off, and we will make our card bases. Okay, so to do these ones, we are going to need 3 standard cards. So if you've got the standard cards there, you can use them as is, or you need to cut down some plain cardstock to 8 1/4 by 5 7/8. And remember, we're doing 3 cards, so you'll need to do that 3 times. So we go 8 1/4 by 5 7/8. All right, and then one more. 5 7/8 by 8 1/4. Now, if you have your scoreboard handy, you can grab that out. If not, no stress, just folding these cards in half. So if you do have your scoreboard, just scoring at 4 1/8, folding them all in half, and then creating our simple Z fold card. So with our card folded in half, picking up that front flap and folding it back over to line up with the score line, or the half fold. There we go. Okay, do that on your other 2 as well. Okay, so then we are going to need some panels for these ones to sit on top of and to hide that piece underneath. So what we'll need is 3 pieces cut from the leftover plain cardstock. You'll need to cut that down to 5 7/8. And then cutting 3 panels at 4 1/8. Okay, so our last panel won't be quite wide enough, but we'll make do, because we don't want to have to cut another piece open. So, because our last piece is at 5 7/8, but it has 3 7/8, so we need 1/4 more. There we go. So just make the most of your scraps, grabbing an extra bit, and then we can adhere that onto the back. Okay, so adhering our fairy panels onto these ones here. Okay, just using double-sided tape or glue, whatever your preference is, or whatever you can grab. Alright, so we're going to tape these down. There we go. Okay, so now just our panels go onto the front here. So just adhering it onto the side, and then we're going to cut some white panels. So they're going to be the same size as these ones, which was 4 inches by 5 3/4, and we're going to stick those there in a moment. So stick these panels down. Because these are the same length, you can just add the tape to these side panels here, just to make it easier, because you know that they're at the same height. So if you're adhering to something else slightly smaller, you're not going to want to put the tape on this one first. But being this is the same size, it is totally fine. Just makes it easier. Okay, peeling that up, adhering the panel on. There we go. Okay, so do our other two. There we go. Okay, so we will cut our white pieces of cardstock from what we had left previously. So just 4 inches by 5 3/4. One more panel. And then just adhering those to the inside of the cards. Grab tape. Okay, so there are our 3 beautiful fairy cards using the Distress Oxide smooshing method to create our backgrounds. So they will fit in just a standard size card. You can stamp a sentiment in there and add a sentiment on the front. Do happy birthday or get well soon, whatever you wanted to add, or you may just want to leave it plain until you are ready to send it off and then add the sentiment on, ready to go. So I hope you have had fun creating these beautiful cards using Distress Oxides, the smooshing method and some Lavinia stamps. We look forward to seeing you next time.